welcome to Be My Guest. And my beautiful guest here today is all the way from Boston, Marguerite Gorodiscus. Um, and she's now Margot Hollander. And Marguerite has the most wonderful, wonderful story, tragic and later on very beautiful story of childhood under Nazism in France. Marguerite, welcome.
Thank you.
Would you tell us, Marguerite, what life was like for you as a child before the onslaught of or before the Nazis arrived?
Well, I don't remember very much about it, but I know that we were very poor and that life was not easy as it was because my parents had arrived from their own country recently and they were just beginning, to settle down a little. And I was born. They did not expect me to be born. So that made it even harder for them. And I know that we lived in one room, no bathroom, of course, no running water. It was not an easy life. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. And were you an only child, Margot?
Yes.
The same as me?
Well, in 1944, my brother was born. That is when my father came back from camp, from internation camp.
Internment camp. And how old were you when the Nazis took over Europe?
Well, I was 6 years old when it started. When, it was just like a bourdonnement, as we would say in French. And because we were poor in Paris, the city of Paris sent us, poor children, to 1 month of fresh air to the country.
Okay.
And that didn't cost my parents anything.
Oh, that was good.
Sometimes in 1939, in the summer, I was sent to the country, not to a camp, but this time it was in a personal home.
Okay.
It was a single lady, and the government paid her for 1 month to take care of me so I could have fresh air. Well, when the time came for me to be sent back home, she received a letter from the government saying that, I believe, that's what she told me, that the trains were not safe at the moment and that she should keep me until further notice.
Okay.
Now, the further notice came, I don't know, a couple of weeks later maybe.
Okay.
Meanwhile, my father wrote a letter to her. He had someone, he did not know how to write French, but he had someone write a letter for him asking this lady, whose name, by the way, was Angèle.
Angèle.
Angèle, like angel.
Angel. Angèle.
Oui. Oui. And he would pay her what the government had been paying her. And she accepted. She was a nice lady, and she was also very poor. And that's what she did to help her a little with her life. She had another girl who was a ward of the state, I believe, and she was taking care of her all the time. So I stayed there for 1 year.
Okay.
And that is what happened and how I happened to be in that little village, which, by the way, is called Saint-Saturnin. It is in the Cher in France, in the kind of in the center of France, in the south of Paris. Not the south of Paris, it's south of Paris.
South of Paris. And your parents were Lithuanian Jews.
My mother was from Poland and my father from Lithuania. They met in Paris.
Okay, the city of love.
Yes, yes.
We were talking about that earlier in another program. Is the French language the language of love? And I would say absolutely, absolutement. But there's a slight pause in the in the connection. But tell me what happened. Your if you want to continue with the story, how did you came back to Paris to your parents?
Well, actually, I did not come back to my parents until after the war.
Oh,
My
okay.
parents came to visit me to the village where I was when there was an exodus from Paris, and everybody was leaving Paris who could at that time. And I think, I don't know exactly when that was. It must have been in 1940. I'm not sure about this. But my parents came a year later, which must have been 1940, 1941, and they walked with thousands of other people who were leaving Paris because Paris was being bombarded, and they walked all the way. There was no trains. They were being bombarded all the way. You know, I remember they came with a gas mask. Each one of them had a gas mask just in case if, there was gas sent
Yes.
down from the plane.
Yeah.
So they arrived to the village. My father had a bicycle and my mother walked. When she arrived first, my father was sitting somewhere. He was resting because he was very tired. They were both in a very bad state. Walking for 8 days and 8 nights. My mother's feet were all bloody. She could hardly walk. It was terrible. And she arrived. She had come to visit me once during that year to see how I was doing in the village. And I thought that she had come to pick me up. And towards the evening, I went with her and with the lady so that she could catch a bus back to Paris. And I thought I was going with her.
Yeah.
And when she left and left me in the village, I felt very bad. I felt as if my parents didn't want me and left me there.
Because
I
you were
was
only
very
6.
sad.
You were only about 6 at that
At the
stage.
time, I was 7 already
7. Yeah.
because they came a year later.
Yeah.
Then my mother said to me, Margot, I have a surprise for you. Keep on walking on the road and you will find a surprise. And as I was walking down the road, I heard a whistle that I knew very well.
It
My
was your dad.
father always whistled to me. And when I heard that whistle, I cannot tell you what it meant to me because I adored my
I
father.
know what it meant to you, Margot. I know what it meant to you. My dad was in England for 14 years before he came fully home. And
Oh my
the
gosh, when
little
I saw
things,
my
I saw him once a year, every year,
I
once a year.
remember crying, Papa, Papa! And I ran over to him and we both walked back. Of course, Angèle, the other girl whose name was Raymond, and myself slept in one, we lived in one room also. So there was a double bed for Raymond and for me, and another double bed for Angèle and her mother, because her mother at the time lived with us too. and there was no place for my parents, that's for sure. So they slept in the stable with
Okay.
the goats and the donkey. And Angel asked me if I wanted to sleep with in my bed or if I wanted to sleep with my parents in the stable. And I said I want to sleep with my parents in the stable.
And did Angèle also mind Robert? Did she also mind your brother?
No, my brother was not born until
He
way
wasn't
later.
born until 44, sure he
No,
wasn't.
no, no,
No.
no, no. And you will see why with as the story goes on.
Excellent.
Uh, they slept there for a while until the mayor of Saint-Saturnin found them another lady who had enough room, an extra bedroom for us to sleep in. And of course, it was not the best arrangement, but it was better than sleeping in the stable. And we lived with that lady for I don't remember how long, maybe a couple of months, until the mayor found a room for us in in the center of the town, which was called a bourg, Bourg. That's
Bourg.
the center where a few stores and so forth, and the school. So we lived in that one room in order to be able to have some food. My parents used to go and help the farmers to to do whatever they needed to have done, and for this they got food or a few francs. Um, I really don't know exactly. Oh, my father received a little pension from the government because it was le chômage, because he wasn't working and he couldn't. But in the village, for that little sum, he had to work at whatever he was told to do in the village. So I remember he was asked to work in the forest, cutting down trees, clean up the snow in the winter. And there was an old cemetery next to the church, and they wanted to, it was not in use anymore. So they wanted to make just a little park around the church for it. But of course, they had to clean up the cemetery, and that was my father's job.
Okay.
He had to dig out the tombs, take up the bones, put them in a bag that the mayor had given him, and every day after work he used to bring the bones to the mairie, which is how do you say mairie in English? Town hall.
Town hall, yeah,
To the
the
town
mayor.
hall. Yes, and that was his job for a long time, and that's how we lived. Sometimes I remember once a woman who lived just across the street from us. She was from Paris and she was visiting her father who lived across the street from us. And she had two children about my age, and I was over there playing with the kids, and she saw a man in uniform knock at our door and enter in our apartment. And she said to me, Marguerite, I think that you better go upstairs in the, um, what is it called? I forgot. You know, where they keep the stuff upstairs,
The
which is
attic?
not part.
The
The
attic.
attic, merci.
De
Yeah,
rien.
to go to the attic until I call you down. She waited and waited, and he was not coming out. So she went over to my house and knocked at the door to find out what was going on. And it turned out that he was a friend of my aunt who also lived in the village. And he was a maquisard, which is an underground, the
Undertaker.
Maxils. Hmm?
Undertaker?
No, they were the underground who were fighting against the Germans.
Oh, the
And he was
resistance.
in uniform, but she
The
did not know
resistance.
about uniform. So she called me back and told me, I can come down now, it's safe. Thank God. The other thing was, I was having nightmares. I don't know what they meant, but I remember having a nightmare, excuse me, of a German running up, one German running after me, and across from us there was like an electric power thing, and I was running around and around, and that German was running after me, wanted to catch me, and then I woke up. And then I had the same dream with three wolves that were running after me because I was terribly afraid of wolves, which I don't even know if there are wolves in France. And another time it was three snakes that were after me in my
It
night
was
in my
always
dream.
three.
Always three. I have never found out what that three meant. I really don't know, but
Yeah,
it shows the fear, that I
yeah.
had. Another time, I remember someone knocking at our door and telling us that the Germans were supposed to be passing into our village and that we should not stay in our apartment, that we should leave. And they even gave us a farm where we could go
Mm.
for the night, where we would be safe. I think that the mayor actually was protecting us in a way,
Yeah.
even though at the time I didn't realize it, because we were not allowed to go any further than 10 kilometers from where we lived. And I thought uh, for many years that it was because he wanted to be sure to know where we were and that he wanted us, uh, in a
Under
place
his
where he could
control.
get to us if he needed to. I don't know who told my parents about that time that the Germans were supposed to go through the village. So at night we left and we went into that farm, and the lady of the farm put me to bed with her daughter, and my parents slept in their stable. And in the morning we went back home. I don't know if the Germans went through the village or not, and that I don't know.
Mm.
So that's how life went. And then
Had you always got a sense of your Jewish ethnicity? Had you always a sense that you were Jewish and that's why, or were you unaware
I
did you just
wasn't, I
consider
must have
yourself
was
French?
unaware. I knew I was Jewish, but I did not know anything about being a Jew.
Yeah,
The lady, Angèle, sent me to church, and I went to church with all the kids. Then, when my parents arrived, they said to me, "No, you cannot go to church." So I waited outside for my friends after the catechism and all that. Um, and I felt bad. I wanted to go to church. I wanted to go to catechism with my friends, and I didn't know what it meant to be Jewish. Anyway, I think I
did you feel that the lady Angel, who was bringing you to mass in the
she did
Catholic
not
Church?
know I was. She did not know I was Jewish.
No,
She
no,
had
okay.
no idea because that summer where I was sent to her, I was not sent because I was Jewish. I was sent like other kids, Jewish, non-Jewish, whatever, Catholic, Protestant, just poor people.
Just poor people. Okay,
Yes,
that's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, that's very
in
interesting because it's different than the kinder transport in
totally different,
yeah,
totally.
very, very different
But
because
my
they were
parents
brought
were not pious. My parents were not pious at all. So I never was told what it means to be Jewish or
Yes.
anything like that. Or
Yeah.
let's say to be proud to be a Jew. No. To me, being Jewish was not a good thing. It meant I'm not like the other kids. I'm poor. Uh, I'm different. I didn't like it. I did not like. I wished I was not Jewish. Anyway, that's not the way I feel now.
That's
Thank
not the
God.
way. Yeah, no,
So,
I can
yeah,
understand because you felt that it stood you out from your friends and you wanted to be
yeah.
part of the group. You wanted to be the same as all your friends.
And we were so poor. Only old clothes from other people. I could never be like the other kids, you know. Children are very mean
They
when it
are.
comes to, yes. So they used to make fun of me. It was not an easy life. I did not have a good childhood, let's put it this way. And one night, to go on with my story, it was probably in 1940. I have, I have some papers that I might show you afterwards. I have, anyway, the date I'll tell you later. One night, it was around 3 o'clock in the morning. We heard a knock knock on the door. My mother got up and said, "Who is it?" "Police." "Open the door." So my mother said, "Just a minute, I'm getting dressed." And we had like a little closet with a window in the back of the of our room.
Yeah.
And my mother said to my father, "Why don't you run out in through the window and go in go get go run
Hide.
into the woods?" And he said, "What if there is police there too? Then it will be even worse for me." Because in those days, we thought, he thought that he was going to a work camp working for the Germans. We did not know what is happening to the Jews. So my mother opened the door. I was standing up on my bed looking at what's going on. And it still gives me the shivers when I think of it. She opened the door, and 2 or 3 policemen came in and told my father to get dressed and to go with them. And my mother said, "Here, Benzel," that's what we called him. My mother called him Benzel. His Hebrew name is Benjamin. In French, he was Benjamin.
Benjamin in Yemen.
Yeah. And she said, "Take a couple of blankets. You will need it." And the policeman said, "He does not need anything. He will be given everything he needs where he's going." So I remember the last words of my father when he went with them. He said, "I'll see you now after the war." And he left. I don't know how my mother and I survived. I don't know. I was a young child, but somehow we did. My mother used to help out also, farmers, whatever. I went to school. After about 1 year, my father came back. He knocked at the door, and there he was. It was still during the war. It was in 1943.
2 years before
And
the end.
he said that he had been liberated from the camp in which he was. And he had been there for a year. He said that one evening the Germans came and asked him for his passport, which he had hidden, and asked him if he was Russian or Lithuanian. I don't know what he answered. I don't remember at the time he told us. But whatever he said was the right answer. And the next morning they told him that he could leave, that he was free. And they gave him a liberation paper, which I have a copy of,
Oh,
and the
excellent.
original I gave to the museum, to the Holocaust Museum in Washington. When he arrived home, of course, we were all very excited. He was very weak. I remember him standing and saying something to me. And I said to him, "You're kidding." And I gave him a little tiny push. And he fell backwards down on the floor. That's how weak he was. I felt terrible. Oh my gosh. He was sick. He needed surgery. He had an ulcer, and we could not afford. We didn't have any money to pay for it. So my aunt, who at that time had moved to a little city 30 kilometers away from where we lived, had some Jewish friends there, some that she knew, and one of them was a very comfortable Jewish man. She told him the story of my father, and he said that he would pay for the operation. So my father went to the hospital, and this gentleman paid for the operation. And maybe a month later, we found out from my aunt that this gentleman and a few other Jewish people had been thrown in a well by the Germans. You know, my mother became pregnant. My brother was born 9 months later, of course, and we named him after this gentleman. His name is Gilbert. He
Gilbert.
was born in 1940. Yeah, Gilbert.
Water?
Non, 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 merci, je n'ai pas besoin. Euh, euh, okay, after that, my father, after coming home from the camp, never slept one night at home. Never. He was afraid that the police will come back again in the middle of the night and take him and send him to another camp. So as soon as it got dark, he took his bicycle and went away into the sunset. I did not know where he went. My parents didn't want me to know because, you know, children may talk. I found out only after the war that he went to another place where there was another Jewish family who had not been touched by the Germans in any way. So he slept over there in the attic. And he came back every morning. Then I guess time went on and we were liberated. It was the end of the war as well. You know, as I'm getting older and older, I remember less and less. I remember at the end of the war when the declaration happened of the end of the war, everybody went out in the town, in the center of the town, and everybody was singing La Marseillaise.
It's the most remarkable anthem in the world, by far, in my view. There's nothing like the Marseillaise. It's just so full of hope and so full of
Yeah.
so
And
full
that was
of
a song that
passion.
we were not allowed to sing that during the war. So that was almost like a liberation song. So this is my story in a few words during the war. If you want to know something more that you think I may have left out, you can ask me.
I'm just thinking, how did your parents survive after the war?
Uh, After the war, our apartment was
Did they
taken by.
find it did they find it difficult after the war to talk about their experiences? Did they distrust people? Did they have a sense of, did they start going into themselves and just staying with um, people who, like themselves, had survived such atrocities, or were they able to talk about their experiences?
No, they didn't. I think they wanted to forget about it and start a new life.
Okay. Did they talk to you at all about it afterwards? Did it ever come up in conversation, or
No,
did they
no,
completely shut down?
they did not speak. My father never spoke about his family. His parents were in Lithuania still, and my mother's brothers, she had one brother and three sisters. Oh my goodness, three sisters in Poland. One sister was in France. That is the sister who made papers for my mother to come to Paris. And she was very comfortable. She lived in the suburbs of Paris. She had her own house and she had a little business where she sold shoes. So when my parents left to go to the village, they asked her to come with them too because Paris was in war, state of war. It was dangerous. And she said, no, I can't leave my house, my business. I just can't. So she stayed. And when things were getting really bad in Paris, she ran away with her husband and a girl that she had adopted. And they were stopped at the demarcation line and sent to Auschwitz. And they died in Auschwitz.
They died
My
in
aunt,
Auschwitz.
same thing. My aunt came with her daughter to the village where we were, and her husband didn't want to come. He said, I have served in the military for the French people. They will not take me.
Yeah.
He was taken in the subway by the Germans, sent to Auschwitz. Never heard from him again. He died, we have proof. And my mother's family in Poland, nobody survived. The three sisters with their kids, the brother, the father. Her mother died before the war. And my father's parents also died during the war. Et
So,
voilà, this is the story.
so you were just left really with your parents. There was no extended family left at all,
Well,
aunts or
there
uncles.
was my aunt and my cousin Micheline who had left to come to the village, and
But
they lived in the village.
you yourself were born in France,
I was born in Paris.
in Paris, city of dreams. It's a
So did my cousin Micheline.
fabulous city, fabulous city, Paris. It's a fabulous city, Paris.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful city, beautiful.
It is very beautiful, but for me, it wasn't.
Yeah, you see, it's got bad memories for you as well.
Yes.
It's not the romantic city for you that many people see it
When
as
you are
today,
very poor, life is not easy no matter where you
where
are.
you are. That's so true. But at what point, Margot or Marguerite, you go by Margot now.
Yes,
At what
I do.
point did you take the journey to America?
I came in 1952.
Okay,
We discovered, my father knew that he had an uncle in America, in the United States, I should say. I think he knew he lived in Boston, and that's all he knew. Well, after the war, when we went back to Paris, in Paris, after supper, there was no TV. So everybody goes out for a little walk on the main street, and you meet people that you know, and you talk with people, you take a walk. And my father was with my brother, who was maybe 2, 3 years old at the time, and he was walking, and my brother ran ahead of him. So my father did never learn to speak French well. So he spoke Yiddish. And he called to my brother, Gilbert, Kim Serik, which means come back. And behind him, an American soldier was walking, and he walked up to my father, and he said to him, Ich bin a Yid, which means
Are you
I am a
Jewish?
Jew. Yeah. And they started to talk together, and my father told him the story of the uncle in the United States, and the soldier was from Miami, and he said to my father, I am going to find your uncle for you when I return to the United States. And you know what? He did.
Wow.
And that's how come I came to the United States. My parents had to wait 10 years because that was the Polish quota. They had to wait 10 years for their quota. The French quota was 1 year. So after I registered 1 year later, my family in the United States sent me a ticket, and I came to the United States, not able to speak a word of English. I was 19 then.
That must
It
have
was
been
not
so
easy.
hard for you, Margot,
It
to
was.
to
It
go
was very hard.
and not speak a word
I
of
did not know anybody there. The family I did not know in the United States. It was hard, yes.
and then you met your husband.
And then, yes, I met my husband. He was introduced to me by my cousin. He was quite a bit older than I am, but
You fell in love.
I married because to make my life easier. He was very nice to me, and I figured, what else am I going to do here? I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends.
What else am I going to do here?
Somebody.
I might as well marry you.
It's not a very good way to marry. I told my kids, don't know what I need.
And then you had at what stage did you have Denise?
I became pregnant right away because my husband was 15 years older than I was.
Wow.
I didn't want to have a baby at the time, but he did. He felt that he's older and he wants to have a baby. I became pregnant right away.
And you had is Denise your only child?
No, I have two more. Denise is the oldest. Oh, you know Denise. Of course you know Denise from the
We're on
Irish
Facebook.
book. Yeah,
And your
yeah.
granddaughter does Irish dancing, or did
Yes.
Irish dancing.
And I
She's
used
going
to
to
go and
talk
watch
to
her
you
all the
also.
time. I loved it. I loved it. And
You loved the Irish
were so
dancing.
wonderful.
What did you love
And the
about the
wigs,
Irish dancing? What did you love about the Irish dancing?
everything, the dancing, the clogging, the wigs, the costumes, the music. I love it.
Every bit of it. So
You know,
so when
you
Megan
know
gave
what
you,
is
sorry?
you know what's my dog's name? Is
No?
Danny Boy.
Ah, for God's sake.
I thought he was an Irish dog, and when I love the song "Oh Danny Boy." When I heard that song, I said, "That's it. That's my Danny Boy."
The pipes are calling.
Yes.
So you went everywhere with Megan to the Irish dancing competitions,
Yes,
and you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. I loved all kinds of dancing, not just Irish step dancing. I went myself folk dancing for years because I love it.
Yeah, it's something that's in your blood. If you have to dance, you have to dance. How has America been for you?
I think that as time went on, I was happier and happier. But the beginning was very hard, very hard. It's not easy to be a young girl, parent with nobody. Uh, with my husband, it was so. But I had the children, and they made me happy. My children made me happy. And as I learned to become more of an American, life got easier. I used to be very, very shy, and my children helped me to become more myself
You
and
found
to come
yourself in
out.
America.
Yes, I found myself exactly. I found myself, and now I am. I feel good about myself, and it took me a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Denise, now, and your other children, did you find it hard to talk to them about your experiences and those of your parents?
You know,
And were they
it's
curious
funny.
about your life?
Oh, they all know about it because I did speak about it. But they told me, one of them anyway, told me that the way I spoke about it is as if I had been happy there. So I didn't want them to feel bad about it, I think. So that I don't know what I told them exactly, but she said to me, but you were not unhappy in Saskatchewan. It was beautiful there and you loved it. And I'm thinking, what did I love there? I mean, the countryside is beautiful. And maybe even as a child, I was able to appreciate it. You know, I know when I went back there with my husband, I said to him, oh, look at the beautiful cows. Look at the sheep. Oh, it's so beautiful.
You were
So I
returning
don't
to
know,
your
maybe,
childhood home. Our childhood homes are
yes,
always
and
the most beautiful.
I still love to go back there. Also, comparing, let's say when I came to the United States, my husband was also a survivor of the Holocaust. And all our friends were survivors of the Holocaust who had been in concentration camps. So comparing to them, what did I have to complain about? Comparing to them, I had a good life.
Yeah.
So I think that this is how I, I saw myself, but because I was so young, it was so, I think it might have been harder for me because of my age than children who are older, let's say like teenagers. I had that feeling. I know that when the police came to pick up my father at night, standing on my bed, I watched the whole thing as if it was a movie.
Yeah.
I didn't see
Yeah.
anything. I remember thinking to myself, Margot, because my parents always called me Margot, why aren't you crying? You love your daddy, you love your father. How come you're not crying because the police is taking him away, I felt nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And from that time on, I think I was not able, when something horrible happened, I shut down.
Yeah,
I
it's
could not,
post-traumatic. It's
yes,
post-traumatic stress syndrome,
oh my
PTSD.
goodness. And not only bad, but even good. Something
Mm,
really good. I didn't feel a thing. I
yeah.
went to a psychiatrist about that for psychology, and the doctor helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Helped me a lot with it. Yes.
Feel that you're, I suppose, how are you coping on your own in the States? What is the status with you in America? Are you in complete isolation like we are here in this country? Or do you have family that comes to visit you? And I suppose,
No.
did did the fact that you went through such separation from your parents as a child in any way help you in the during these last few months while we've been told to stay away from family members and to isolate yourself? Were you somehow prepared because of your childhood experiences, or did it make it harder?
I had never thought of it, but you
There you
might be
go.
right. Yes. As a child, during the war, very often I was by myself. Some Sometimes the other kids didn't want to play with me. I was not like them. So I became a bit of a loner. And because I am a loner, I like people when I feel like it. But being alone is not a big deal to me.
Where you and I are both like cats. We like people when we like them, and not
Yes,
and on our terms.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and I live in, I don't know if Megan told you, but I live in a village of senior citizens,
Okay.
and they have been taking care of us. We cannot have people from the outside, but they leave us food at the door, our mail. We're being taken care of, and we can go out for a walk. And there are other people. We have to wear the masks, of course, when we go out, but it has not been too bad.
No, because you were, I'm thinking like me, you were an only child, and you also felt different from everybody that you were with. And I too came home from England, so for a long time I felt different from my friends who were all Irish. And
Oh my
and as well
goodness.
as that, I suppose you were so long away from your family for a year. I used to only see my dad once a year. So I think all of that prepares you for situations like COVID-19, where you spend long times on your own. And your situation during the war and your survival of the war has made you a survivor in every aspect of your life. That's my interpretation. Am I
And
right?
you are so right. I had never thought of it, but thank you very much. It is so
De
true.
rien, de rien,
Merci beaucoup.
de rien. C'était avec plaisir.
Je ne savais pas que les Anglais et les Irlandais sont tellement différents.
Uh,
I
je-
did
uh,
not know that
yeah,
English people and Irish people are so different.
very
Well,
different.
I suppose that it's like saying the French people and the German people are so different. I guess so.
Well, we're
And
not
in
all, we're all very much alike at the end of the day. I suppose what connects us all is our difference, because you're different to me and I'm different to you, and somebody from Germany would be different from both of us. So it's difference that actually makes us the same. We are the same because we're different. We're all different to one another.
Well, it certainly makes us more interesting.
Does it would be a sad world if we were all the same.
It would be boring.
Very boring. Well, Margot, it was an absolute delight to talk to you. Absolute.
And a pleasure for me. Thank you so much, Mary. I
Uh,
really appreciate
it's
this meeting you, and I wish you good luck. And thank you for what you are doing. I
merci beaucoup.
appreciate it very much.
And you have a beautiful dog there. Do you want to show us your dog?
Oh,
Show us
I
Danny
have to
Boy.
introduce you to Danny Boy.
Introduce me to
Just a
Danny
minute.
Boy.
Just a minute.
Yeah, take your time.
Come on, Danny Boy. Danny Boy, come with mommy. Come with mommy.
Oh my God. Can
Can
you
you see Danny Boy?
no? Oh, for God's sake, isn't he gorgeous? Lift him up a little bit higher. We. Oh, he is just gorgeous. What? Yeah,
Easy,
he's
darling.
gorgeous.
This is my baby. Thank you, Mary.
Do- oh,
Are you are you planning to come to the United States?
I'm always planning to come to the United States. I would love to see the Holocaust Museum in Washington D.C. I'd love to get to see the museums over there, the Holocaust museums over there. I was in Boston for one day, and I've been in a few places judging Irish dancing, and it's a beautiful country. It's
Are
both.
you an Irish step dancer?
Yes, I was an Irish dancer,
Oh,
and I teach Irish dancing, and I judge Irish dancing. So I've judged it in America, mostly New York and New Jersey, and uh, uh, Chicago, and mostly around New England. But
oh,
and Boston. I judged in Boston, but I
so
was
you
there for
do
a
a lot of
weekend.
traveling.
Pardon?
You do a lot of traveling.
Yes, I do. I go to France every year speaking to at the Catholic University in Lille. I speak on the Holocaust. I there's a wonderful professor there, Professor Cathy Leblanc, and her grandfather was a member of the Russian resistance during World War II. And Cathy is a professor de philosophie, Université Catholique à Lille, and every year she has a, a 4 day, 5 day seminar on the Holocaust to commemorate the Holocaust Memorial Day, and I speak at that. And but this year it was cancelled because of COVID-19, but they've translated my piece into French and they're publishing it. I wrote a piece on the Kindertransport and Ireland's involvement during World War II, Ireland's protection of Nazis, and so so I wrote that piece, and that'll be published in the journal. So I love France.
We we have a woman here who was on the Kindertransports, who lives in the village here.
I'd love to
And
speak to her.
she used to give interviews, but she doesn't anymore because she's become very forgetful.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's a blessing for some people, probably, that they can't remember what they went through, and for others, it's probably they want to remember. Other survivors like yourself want to remember, whereas some people just want to forget.
Well, I suppose for many years, I was thinking about that village and my life there. And I don't know why. It was always on my mind. And I wanted to forget it, not to think about it. And I could not help myself.
Mm.
And I still do. I still do. I
Want
don't
to,
know why.
you still want to forget.
Mm.
You still want to forget.
Yes.
But
Because
you're destined to remember.
I guess so. I guess so.
Well, Margot, it was absolutely delightful to talk to you.
Yes, and thank you again, Mary.
It was utterly my pleasure, and I'll be talking hopefully to Denise as well about life as the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and Megan is coming on with me to talk about her life because she took a remarkable. She was telling me that her family, for her mother, and that Megan became very really ultra orthodox, and her brother became ultra orthodox. So it took an interesting. She was an Irish dancer who became a ultra orthodox Jew, which is a nice kind of a different angle to things. So she's going to talk about that with me.
Wonderful. I have another daughter who somehow I think is the one with whom I speak the most. And she tells me that she was very touched by the fact that we were survivors. She seems to be noticing it more than the two other girls.
I suppose everybody reacts to it differently, and some people they protect themselves from the fact that they don't want to imagine that their mother has gone through so much, and then others are much more able to vocalize it. And so I suppose everyone's different in the way that they um, take your experiences on board. It's not easy for some, and it's slightly easier for others. People like me, I'm interested in knowing about people's lives. Other people are just don't want to imagine that their mother would suffer like that.
Let's say my other daughter, Michelle, reminds me that, let's say, when they were little, Denise and herself, I would not let them go to play with children who were not Jewish because I was afraid that because they're Jewish, something might happen to them. That's the fear I had.
Can you lower the? Can you lower the keep it another?
Lower it this way?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
You're like myself. You're vertically challenged.
So now she says, look, we are not like the other kids because you did not let us play with the other kids. So we didn't have anybody to play with.
Yeah.
What?
It's a protection.
Yeah, there was always that fear, the fear of anybody knowing I'm Jewish. I did not want anybody to know that I was Jewish because if they knew, I would get hurt.
Yeah, but you don't feel like that anymore.
But not at all, not at all, especially not here where I live, because there is a Jewish uh, religious person,
A rabbi. Rabbi.
and one who is Protestant and one who is Catholic, and we always get together and we do things together, and they emphasize that we should get along together and that everybody should love each other, and I am very happy here. I love it.
You love it.
Well, I am not going to take any more of your time.
You're fabulous. Yeah, you're fabulous. You
So,
vanished again. All I can see are your
oh,
eyes.
there I am. So bye
Well,
bye, Mary.
bye
And
bye, Margot. It was great talking to you. Shish Gadei Shif Sloan.